Hello and happy Easter. You're watching Shalom World News. I'm Rory McLennan coming to you from Glasgow, Scotland. Here are the latest headlines from around the world. On Easter Sunday, Pope Francis delivered his Easter message and Urbi et Orbi blessing for the city of Rome and the world, in which he underscored the fact that Christ's resurrection exhorts Christians to rediscover the joy of serving God, promote world peace and help their fellow human beings. The Holy Father wished everyone a happy Easter and said that in Jesus, the transition for humanity from death to life, sin to grace, fear to confidence and desolation to communion has been made. Live broadcasts of the blessing were made available all around the world. Tens of thousands of believers thronged St. Peter's Square and the adjoining alleys to listen to the Holy Father, who spoke from the central loggia of St. Peter's Basilica. In Sri Lanka, the local church continues to claim a cover-up and seek justice by calling for an international probe into the 2019 Easter Sunday bombings that claimed 261 lives. On the 4th anniversary of the disaster, Father Julian Patrick Pereira of the Archdiocese of Colombo underlined the lack of justice. He claimed that no serious investigation had been carried out on the whole matter. He said the withdrawal of several important investigators from the case suggests a cover-up. Cardinal Malcolm Ranjit of Colombo has repeatedly demanded an international probe and questioned the government's account of the attacks. Father Pereira said the Catholic Church is one of the few organisations with the ability to challenge the Sri Lankan government's authority in the name of justice. In the days following the Israeli police raid at Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa mosque, tensions between Israel and Palestine have continued to rise. Attacks by the Palestinian side claimed the lives of 3 persons, while Israel carried out airstrikes in Lebanon and the Gaza Strip. Israeli authorities said that a car rammed into a gathering of visitors in Tel Aviv, killing 1 Italian tourist. The man has been identified as Alessandro Parini from Rome. 5 others were injured. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni expressed closeness to the family of the victim and solidarity with Israel. In a separate incident, 2 British-Israeli women were shot and killed in the occupied West Bank, allegedly by members of Hamas. The United States is witnessing concerted efforts to promote gender ideology, and in the latest incident, a drag show was conducted in West Hollywood on Easter Sunday. RuPaul's Drag Race was conducted on Easter Sunday in response to the growing support for the campaign against the LGBTQ agenda. Meanwhile, the president of a non-governmental organisation advocating religious liberty in Canada has slammed the proposed law in Ontario that prohibits protests within a 100-metre perimeter around drag shows and LGBTQ events. Michael Thiessen of Liberty Coalition Canada expressed concern over the proposed law. He said in reality, this bill is not about protecting anyone from hate, but silencing all opposition. A Canadian pastor who was arrested last week for protesting near a drag show had to spend Easter behind bars. Pastor Derek Reimer was arrested for alleged hate speech. He now faces 8 new charges, including criminal harassment, causing a commotion, and violating his release terms. In the United States, the Catholic Archdiocese for the Military Services has accused the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center of denying Catholic service members and veterans their right to practice their faith. This comes after the centre cancelled a contract for pastoral care and came out with a cease and desist order to a community of priests just a few days before Holy Week. The order was issued against Holy Name College Friary, comprising a community of Franciscan friars, which had served the centre for almost 2 decades. The Archdiocese said the contract with the friars was terminated at the end of March, just as Holy Week was about to begin. The Archdiocese slammed the move as an attack on the right of free exercise of religion under the First Amendment. Internally displaced people of Myanmar observed Easter amid the ravages of civil war, far from their homes, without friends and family, and with little to no access to food and medical supplies. Despite losing everything, they are, however, attempting to rebuild their lives. Christian refugees have established new communities in Taungyi, the capital of the eastern state of Shan. They celebrated Easter for the first time since Aung San Suu Kyi and her party, the National League for Democracy, were overthrown by the military 2 years ago. According to the latest United Nations report on the humanitarian situation in Myanmar, over 1.8 million people had been displaced by late March, mostly in the northwest of the nation, where fighting has gotten worse recently. The president of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria has warned Nigerians against falling into despondency and depression in light of the 2023 general elections. In his Easter message, Archbishop Lucius Ugorji recalled the events that followed the elections on the 25th of February and lamented aborted dreams and shattered hopes. He mentioned difficulties facing the nation's Christians, including economic hardship, youth unemployment, and the ever-growing phenomenon of extremism and terrorism. The Independent National Electoral Commission of Nigeria named Bola Tinubu the victor of the presidential election. According to the commission, Mr. Tinubu received 8.8 million votes. The People's Democratic Party and Labour Party, two of Nigeria's major opposition parties, contested the results, however, and charged the commission with failing to upload the presidential results from voting places. Subsequently, a petition contesting the presidential election was submitted to Nigeria's Court of Appeal. In Chicago, several parishes are co-sponsoring gun buyback events in cooperation with local police authorities to inspire people to turn in their weapons. The parishes are organising collections to pay for the arms that are consigned. This initiative is aimed at curbing gun violence. It comes in the wake of the deadly mass shooting in a Christian school in Nashville, where 3 children were killed. The latest parish to join the gun buyback event is Blessed Trinity Parish in Waukegan Lake County, and it is scheduled to be held on the 29th of April. The event will be inaugurated by Cardinal Blaise Supich of Chicago and Auxiliary Bishop Jeffrey Grobe, who will donate money to buy back 100 weapons. In a statement, the Cardinal invited local elected officials, faith communities, businesses and individuals to support the initiative to reduce gun violence and to restore peace. In the state of Arizona, Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs has vetoed legislation that mandates abortionists to try and save the lives of babies who survive the termination of pregnancy. She said it was vetoed because Senate Bill 1600 interfered with so-called reproductive rights. Governor Hobbs vetoed the bill on Thursday and sent a letter to Senate President Warren Peterson saying the bill was uniformly opposed by the medical fraternity and it interfered with the relationship between doctor and patient. The veto was slammed by Center for Arizona Policy Action President Kathy Herod in a statement saying the governor gave the okay to infanticide. The bill was introduced in February and passed the Senate by a vote of 16 to 13 and later the House by 32 to 26. On April the 7th, a federal judge in Texas issued an order suspending the US Food and Drug Administration's approval of an abortion pill. He also granted the federal government a 7-day stay of the order's implementation so that it may file an appeal and seek emergency relief. A group of pro-life opponents of the medicine mifepristone, the first of 2 used in medication or chemical abortion, filed a lawsuit in the wake of the Good Friday ruling. The groups contend that the government broke its safety standards when it approved the drug more than 20 years ago and are asking for the FDA to revoke its clearance of the treatment. US District Judge Matthew Kashmerik's decision represents the most significant abortion-related court ruling since the Supreme Court's Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization decision last year, which reversed earlier decisions by the High Court establishing abortion access as a constitutional right. Some 500,000 people participated in the traditional procession of Cristo del Consuelo in Ecuador's Guayaquil to ask the Lord for peace in the Latin American nation. Archbishop Luis Cabrera of Guayaquil led the procession as it left a church in the southern part of the city. He called for an end to violence and urged that peace and reconciliation reign. President of Ecuador, Guillermo Lasso, recently lifted the ban on carrying firearms imposed on civilians 12 years ago. This comes as the nation is battling organised crime and drug trafficking. Despite the orders of Nicaragua's Daniel Ortega regime banning all Holy Week public processions, thousands of faithful crammed the premises of churches and chapels on Good Friday to take part in liturgical celebrations. This represented a mighty show of protest against the Sandinista regime's persecution of the Catholic Church. Thousands of parishioners dressed in white thronged Managua's cathedral on Good Friday to relive the Passion of Christ. Within the premises, they conducted a mammoth procession, which culminated with a liturgical celebration presided over by Cardinal Leopold Brenes. All sorts of religious processions were banned by the regime in February to disrupt the centuries-old traditions of Catholics in the country. The order came after the dictator branded priests, bishops, cardinals, and even Pope Francis as a mafia. This Holy Saturday, over 5,400 adults were received into the Catholic Church in France. The catechumens had undergone a rigorous 2-year course to get trained in the faith. The number of adults being baptised in France has been rising for the past 20 years. Among the neophytes, most of them were between the ages of 18 and 25. According to Pauline de Wants, the director of the National Service of Catechesis, the pandemic played a crucial role in many young adults re-examining their thoughts on religion and spirituality. When faced with questions regarding their existence, death and the future of the planet, many feel the spiritual void within and seek solace in the church. And those are your latest headlines. Do join us again tomorrow for more, and do remember, you can always visit swnews.org for more updates. Shalom.